What if I told you that one of America's most gifted psychics discovered a secret about relationships that could change everything you thought you knew about love and partnership? What if this secret was so powerful that it could protect a woman's heart, preserve her dreams, and ensure her personal power remains intact? Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, channeled wisdom from the universal consciousness that revealed profound truths about human nature and relationships. And buried within his thousands of readings lies a controversial truth that many women instinctively know but rarely dare to speak aloud. There are 3 things, according to Edgar Cayce's revelations, that a woman should never fully reveal to a man, not out of deception, but out of sacred self-preservation. These aren't lies or manipulations. They're protected boundaries that honor the divine feminine wisdom within every woman. But here's what might shock you most. The 3rd thing on this list is something 90% of women reveal too early in relationships, and it's the very thing that often leads to their downfall. Stay with me, because by the end of this revelation, you'll understand why keeping these 3 secrets isn't about being dishonest, it's about being wise. Edgar Cayce said that the human soul operates on multiple levels of consciousness, and that women, in particular, possess an intuitive knowing that connects them directly to universal wisdom. In over 14,000 documented psychic readings, Cayce discovered that women who maintained certain boundaries in their relationships experienced greater personal fulfillment and deeper, more respectful partnerships. According to Edgar Cayce, the feminine energy is naturally receptive and nurturing, which makes women incredibly powerful in relationships. But this same quality can become a vulnerability when not properly protected. Cayce explained that just as a flower must protect its roots while sharing its beauty with the world, a woman must guard certain aspects of herself while still being open to love. But why these 3 specific things? Edgar Cayce discovered through his psychic readings that these 3 areas of a woman's life are directly connected to her personal power, her future potential, and her soul's journey. When these are prematurely exposed or carelessly shared, they create energetic vulnerabilities that can be exploited, even by well-meaning partners. And here's something that will make you reconsider everything. Modern psychology has actually validated much of what Cayce revealed decades ago about the importance of maintaining individual identity within relationships. But Cayce went deeper, explaining the spiritual and energetic reasons why these boundaries are essential. Before I reveal the first of these 3 secrets, let me ask you this. Have you ever shared something deeply personal with someone, only to have it used against you later? Have you ever watched a dream die because someone else's doubt infected your belief in it? If so, you've experienced firsthand why Edgar Cayce's wisdom is so crucial. The first secret might surprise you, because it goes against everything we're taught about transparency in relationships. Edgar Cayce said that a woman's dreams and future plans are like seeds in fertile soil, they need protection and the right conditions to grow. According to Cayce's readings, when a woman shares her goals and plans too early or too completely, she opens them to outside influences that can derail or destroy them. But this isn't about being secretive for the sake of secrecy. Edgar Cayce discovered that there's an energetic component to goal achievement that most people don't understand. When we share our plans with others, we're not just sharing information, we're sharing energy. And if the person we're sharing with doesn't fully believe in our vision, their doubt can literally drain the creative force from our dreams. According to Edgar Cayce, this is particularly true for women because of their naturally receptive nature. Women are more susceptible to absorbing the energy and emotions of others, which means that a partner's skepticism, fear, or lack of understanding can become internalized obstacles to success. Here's a perfect example of what Edgar Cayce meant. Imagine a woman who dreams of starting her own business. She's excited, passionate, and ready to take action. But instead of keeping her plans protected until they're more developed, she immediately shares every detail with her partner. If that partner responds with practical concerns, financial worries, or subtle discouragement, even if it comes from a place of love, that woman's energy begins to shift. Edgar Cayce explained that doubt is contagious, and women, being naturally empathetic, are particularly susceptible to catching it. The partner's concerns become her concerns. His fears become her fears. And slowly, the bright flame of her ambition diminishes. But here's what's truly fascinating. Edgar Cayce discovered that this principle applies not just to business ventures, but to all aspects of personal growth and change. Whether a woman is planning to go back to school, change careers, develop a new skill, or even make significant lifestyle changes, premature sharing can sabotage success. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, the most successful women throughout history understood this principle intuitively. They kept their plans close to their hearts until they had built enough momentum to make them unstoppable. Only then did they reveal their intentions. Now, you might be thinking, but isn't this dishonest? Shouldn't partners share everything? Hold that thought, because the second secret Edgar Cayce revealed will completely change how you view honesty in relationships. In fact, what I'm about to share might save you from making the most common mistake women make in love. Edgar Cayce said that every human being carries within them both light and shadow, aspects of themselves they're proud of and aspects they struggle with. According to Cayce's psychic readings, a woman's deepest insecurities are directly connected to her soul's learning journey, and they're meant to be worked through privately or with carefully chosen spiritual guidance, not casually shared with romantic partners. But why is this so crucial? Edgar Cayce discovered that when a woman reveals her deepest insecurities too early or too completely in a relationship, she creates what he called energetic hooks, points where her personal power can be manipulated or undermined, often without the partner even realizing they're doing it. According to Edgar Cayce, this happens because insecurities are areas where our energy is already compromised. There are weak spots, our vulnerabilities. When we expose these areas to someone who has emotional influence over us, we give them the ability to either heal or harm us in those exact places. Here's what Edgar Cayce observed in his readings. Men, generally speaking, are fixers and problem solvers. When a woman shares her deepest insecurities with a man, his natural inclination is to try to fix or solve them. But insecurities aren't problems to be solved. They're aspects of the soul's journey to be integrated and transformed. When a man tries to fix a woman's insecurities, he often inadvertently reinforces them. His suggestions, advice, or even reassurances can become new sources of pressure or judgment. The woman begins to see herself through his eyes, and if he doesn't fully understand or accept her struggles, she may internalize his perspective as truth. Edgar Cayce gave a powerful example in one of his readings. A woman who was deeply insecure about her intelligence shared this fear with her partner early in their relationship. The man, wanting to be supportive, constantly reassured her that she was smart and capable. But his constant reassurances actually reinforced her belief that her intelligence was questionable. After all, why would he need to keep convincing her if it were obviously true? According to Edgar Cayce, what this woman needed was not reassurance from a man, but inner work to transform her relationship with her own intellect. By sharing her insecurity prematurely, she made her partner's opinion more important than her own inner knowing. But here's the deeper truth Edgar Cayce revealed. Our insecurities often contain our greatest gifts. They're areas where we're meant to develop strength, wisdom, and compassion. When we keep them protected while we work on them privately, we maintain the power to transform them into sources of strength. When we expose them too early, we risk having them defined and limited by someone else's understanding. Edgar Cayce explained that this doesn't mean women should never share their struggles with their partners. But there's a difference between sharing from a place of strength and sharing from a place of vulnerability. When a woman has done some inner work on her insecurities and can discuss them without being emotionally reactive or seeking validation, then sharing becomes an act of intimacy rather than a request for rescue. Now, what I'm about to share with you is the most controversial of Edgar Cayce's revelations about what women should keep private. This third secret is something that 90% of women reveal too early in relationships, and according to Cayce, it's the one that most often leads to judgment, limitation, and loss of personal power. Are you ready for this truth? Edgar Cayce said that a person's past experiences are like chapters in a book. They've shaped who they are, but they don't define who they're becoming. According to Casey's readings, when a woman shares the most personal and painful details of her past too early or too completely with a man, she risks having her entire identity filtered through those experiences. But this goes much deeper than you might think. Edgar Cayce discovered that there's a spiritual principle at work here that most people don't understand. He explained that every soul comes into each lifetime with certain experiences to learn from and transcend. These experiences, whether they're traumas, mistakes, failures, or painful relationships, are part of the soul's curriculum, not its identity. According to Edgar Cayce, when a woman shares these deeply personal details before she's fully processed and integrated the lessons from them, she's still energetically connected to them in a way that gives them power over her present moment. And when she shares them with a romantic partner, she invites that partner to become energetically connected to her past as well. Here's what Edgar Cayce observed happening repeatedly. A woman would share details about past abuse, toxic relationships, family trauma, or personal failures with a new partner, often in an attempt to be completely honest, or to explain certain behaviors or reactions. But instead of creating deeper intimacy, this sharing often created invisible barriers. The man, now knowing these details, would begin to see the woman through the lens of her past experiences. He might become overly protective, treating her as fragile or damaged. He might become suspicious or jealous, wondering if she's truly healed from past relationships. He might even unconsciously begin to expect certain behaviors or reactions based on her history. Edgar Cayce explained it this way. When we share our most painful past experiences with someone who hasn't done their own inner work, they often can't hold space for both our pain and our power simultaneously. They see us as either victims to be rescued or as damaged goods to be cautious about, rather than as whole, complete souls who have simply had certain experiences. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, this is particularly problematic for women because society already tends to define women by their experiences, especially their traumatic experiences, rather than by their inherent worth and potential. But here's what's truly profound about Edgar Cayce's insight. He discovered that when a woman keeps the most personal details of her past private until she's fully integrated the lessons and healed the wounds, she maintains the power to control how those experiences influence her present relationships. She can share selectively, when appropriate, and from a place of strength rather than vulnerability. Edgar Cayce gave the example of a woman who had survived an abusive relationship in her past. Instead of sharing all the painful details with her new partner, she simply communicated her boundaries clearly and demonstrated through her actions that she was strong, self-aware, and committed to healthy relationship patterns. As their relationship deepened and she observed how he handled conflict, respected her boundaries, and demonstrated his own emotional maturity, she gradually shared more of her story. But by then, he already knew her as a strong, capable woman, so the details of her past couldn't redefine his perception of her. According to Edgar Cayce, this approach accomplished several things. First, it allowed the woman to maintain her personal power and not be seen as a victim. Second, it gave her the opportunity to observe how her partner handled information about difficulty and trauma. Third, it ensured that when she did share her story, it was received as part of her journey rather than as her identity. Edgar Cayce said that these three areas, future plans, deep insecurities, and personal past, are like the three legs of a woman's personal power. When any of them is compromised, her entire sense of self becomes unstable. But according to Edgar Cayce's readings, protecting these aspects of herself isn't about being deceptive or manipulative. It's about understanding the sacred nature of personal development and the importance of timing in relationships. Edgar Cayce explained that healthy relationships develop in layers, like an onion. The outer layers are the things we can share freely and safely, our interests, our daily experiences, our hopes and dreams in general terms. As trust deepens and emotional intimacy grows, we can share more vulnerable layers. But the core, those three essential aspects of our personal power, should be revealed slowly, carefully, and only when the relationship has proven itself capable of holding such sacred information. According to Edgar Cayce, this isn't about testing a partner or being withholding. It's about being a good steward of our own energy and power. It's about understanding that not everyone we care about is equipped to handle the most vulnerable parts of who we are, and that's okay. Edgar Cayce discovered something remarkable in his readings. Women who maintained these boundaries naturally attracted partners who were more respectful, more emotionally mature, and more genuinely interested in who they were as complete individuals rather than who they were in relation to their struggles or their past. Now, I can almost hear what you're thinking, but this sounds like game playing. Isn't authenticity important in relationships? Edgar Cayce addressed this exact concern, and his answer might surprise you. Edgar Cayce said that true authenticity isn't about sharing everything with everyone, it's about being genuine in each moment while honoring your own spiritual development. According to Cayce's readings, there's a difference between being secretive and being selective, between being dishonest and being wise. Edgar Cayce explained it this way. A gardener doesn't plant seeds in frozen ground or during a storm, not because the seeds are shameful or because the gardener is being dishonest about having seeds, but because timing and conditions matter for successful growth. Similarly, a woman's most vulnerable aspects, her dreams, her insecurities, and her past, need the right conditions to be shared safely and beneficially. Sharing them too early or with the wrong person isn't authentic, it's unwise. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, authentic women throughout history have understood this principle intuitively. They were genuine and present in their relationships while also being protective of their personal power. They shared appropriately, not completely. Edgar Cayce discovered that this approach actually creates deeper, more genuine intimacy. When a woman shares from a place of choice rather than compulsion, from strength rather than neediness, from wisdom rather than impulse, her sharing becomes a gift rather than a burden. The man receiving this information understands its value and treats it with appropriate respect. But here's what Edgar Cayce found most interesting. Women who maintained these boundaries rarely had to maintain them permanently with the right partner. As the relationship proved itself trustworthy, as the man demonstrated emotional maturity and genuine care, these women naturally opened up more fully. But they did so from a position of power rather than vulnerability. According to Edgar Cayce, this created relationships where both partners felt safe to be vulnerable because the foundation of respect and understanding had been properly established. Edgar Cayce said that wisdom without application is merely interesting information. So how does a modern woman apply these ancient insights in her current relationships? For her next move. According to Edgar Cayce's guidance, a woman should keep her future plans and goals private until they've gained enough momentum to be unstoppable. This doesn't mean lying when asked direct questions, but rather being general rather than specific, sharing the direction rather than the detailed map. Edgar Cayce suggested that women could say things like, "I'm exploring some new possibilities for my career," rather than, "I'm planning to quit my job in 6 months to start a catering business." The first statement is honest but protected, the second is vulnerable to outside influence and doubt. For her deepest insecurities. Edgar Cayce recommended that women work on their insecurities privately or with trusted friends, therapists, or spiritual advisors before sharing them with romantic partners. This allows them to gain some perspective and strength around these issues first. According to Edgar Cayce, when a woman has done some inner work on an insecurity, she can discuss it without being triggered or seeking validation. She can say, "I used to struggle with confidence in this area, but I've been working on it and I'm much stronger now," rather than, "I'm so insecure about this and I need you to tell me I'm okay." For her personal past. Edgar Cayce advised women to share their past experiences gradually and strategically. Start with general information and observe how it's received. Share more personal details only when the relationship has demonstrated that it can handle such information with maturity and respect. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, a woman might start by mentioning that she's learned important lessons from past relationships, rather than immediately detailing exactly what those relationships entailed and how they ended. But here's what Edgar Cayce discovered was the most remarkable result when women followed this guidance. Not only did their relationships improve, but their relationship with themselves transformed completely. Let me explain this life-changing shift. Edgar Cayce said that when a woman protects these 3 aspects of herself, she begins to operate from what he called centered feminine power, rather than reactive feminine energy. According to Cayce's readings, this shift changes everything about how she shows up in relationships and in life. Edgar Cayce explained that reactive feminine energy is seeking validation and approval from others, sharing vulnerabilities in hopes of receiving comfort, making decisions based on others' expectations or reactions, feeling responsible for others' emotions and opinions. But centered feminine power is self-validating and internally referenced, sharing from choice and wisdom rather than neediness, making decisions based on inner knowing and spiritual guidance, taking responsibility only for one's own emotions and growth. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, when a woman maintains these three boundaries, she naturally begins operating from centered feminine power. She becomes more magnetic, more confident, and more attractive, not because she's playing games, but because she's honoring her own worth and energy. Edgar Cayce discovered something fascinating about this transformation. Men respond to centered feminine power completely differently than they respond to reactive feminine energy. They feel safer with a woman who has healthy boundaries because they intuitively understand that she won't make them responsible for her emotional well-being. They feel more attracted to a woman with protected personal power because they sense her strength and self-respect. But perhaps most importantly, according to Edgar Cayce, the woman herself experiences a profound shift in how she feels about herself and her relationships. She stops feeling anxious about whether she's said too much or shared too early. She stops feeling resentful when her vulnerability isn't handled perfectly by her partner. She stops feeling powerless in her relationships because she's maintained her personal power. Edgar Cayce said that these three secrets point to a much deeper spiritual principle about the nature of feminine energy and power. According to Cayce's readings, the feminine aspect of consciousness, whether in women or men, is naturally receptive, intuitive, and creative. But this same quality that makes it so powerful also makes it vulnerable to outside influence. Edgar Cayce explained that in ancient wisdom traditions, women were taught to guard their creative and receptive energy carefully, not out of fear or mistrust, but out of understanding of their own power. They knew that their dreams, their emotional landscape, and their personal history were all sources of tremendous creative force that needed to be protected and channeled wisely. According to Edgar Cayce, modern women have lost much of this ancient wisdom. They've been taught that openness and vulnerability are always good, that sharing everything is always honest, that boundaries are always barriers to intimacy. But Cayce's readings revealed that this isn't true. Edgar Cayce discovered that the most fulfilled women throughout history protected their creative energy while still being loving and present, maintained their individual identity while still being committed partners, shared appropriately and wisely rather than completely and impulsively, understood that their worth wasn't dependent on others' approval or understanding. According to Edgar Cayce, this is the true meaning of feminine wisdom. Not the ability to nurture others at the expense of oneself, but the ability to nurture oneself so completely that one's love and care for others comes from overflow rather than depletion. Edgar Cayce's insights, given decades ago through psychic readings, have been remarkably validated by modern psychology and relationship research. Studies have shown that individuals who maintain some level of personal autonomy and boundaries within relationships report higher satisfaction and longevity in their partnerships. Modern research has confirmed several of Edgar Cayce's key insights. Goals and dreams are more likely to be achieved when they're not shared prematurely with others. Personal insecurities are best worked through privately or with professional help before being shared with romantic partners. Past trauma and difficult experiences are integrated more successfully when individuals have control over when and how they share these experiences. According to current psychological understanding, healthy relationships require both intimacy and autonomy, both vulnerability and boundaries, both sharing and privacy. This perfectly aligns with what Edgar Cayce discovered through his psychic readings decades earlier. But Edgar Cayce went deeper than modern psychology. He explained not just what works, but why it works from an energetic and spiritual perspective. He revealed the underlying principles that govern how consciousness and energy flow in relationships, giving women not just techniques but understanding. But there's one more layer to Edgar Cayce's wisdom that I haven't shared yet, the most profound insight of all. It's about what happens when a woman truly embodies these principles and how it affects not just her romantic relationships, but her entire life purpose and spiritual development. Edgar Cayce said that when a woman fully embraces these three boundaries, she begins to access what he called her soul purpose, the deeper reason her soul chose to incarnate in this lifetime. According to Cayce's readings, most women are so busy managing others' reactions to their dreams, insecurities, and past that they never fully step into their true spiritual mission. But when a woman protects these three aspects of herself, she has the energy and focus to pursue her soul's true calling without distraction or interference. Her dreams remain pure and powerful because they haven't been diluted by others' doubts. Her insecurities transform into sources of wisdom and compassion because she's been able to work through them without external judgment. Her past becomes a source of strength and understanding because she's integrated its lessons without allowing others to define her by it. According to Edgar Cayce, this is when a woman becomes truly magnetic and powerful, not because she's playing relationship games, but because she's aligned with her highest spiritual purpose. Edgar Cayce discovered that women who embodied these principles attracted partners who were spiritually mature and emotionally developed, created relationships that supported both partners' highest growth, became leaders and healers in their communities because they had maintained their personal power, raised children who understood the importance of both love and boundaries, left legacies of wisdom and strength that influenced generations. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, this is the true gift of feminine wisdom. The ability to love deeply while maintaining personal sovereignty, to be vulnerable at the appropriate times with the appropriate people, and to share one's gifts and experiences in ways that uplift rather than deplete. Edgar Cayce said that every soul has the opportunity in each lifetime to either repeat old patterns or evolve to higher levels of consciousness and power. For women, learning to maintain these three essential boundaries while still being loving and authentic represents a crucial evolutionary step. This isn't about becoming cold, calculating, or manipulative. According to Edgar Cayce's wisdom, it's about becoming wise, centered, and truly powerful. It's about understanding that your dreams, your emotional landscape, and your personal history are sacred aspects of your being that deserve to be treated with respect and care, first by you, and then by those you choose to share them with. Edgar Cayce taught that consciousness is always evolving. The women who understand and apply these principles today are helping to anchor a new level of feminine consciousness on the planet, one that combines the traditional feminine gifts of receptivity, intuition, and nurturing with the wisdom to protect and channel these gifts appropriately. According to Edgar Cayce's readings, this evolution in feminine consciousness is essential for the healing and transformation of human relationships and society as a whole. So here's the question Edgar Cayce would ask you if you were here today: are you ready to step into this level of feminine wisdom and power? Are you ready to protect your dreams, transform your insecurities privately, and share your story strategically? Are you ready to love deeply while maintaining your personal sovereignty? The choice, as Edgar Cayce always said, is yours. But remember this: every moment you continue to give away your power through premature sharing, seeking external validation, or allowing your past to define your present, is a moment you're not fully stepping into your soul's true purpose and power. Edgar Cayce's wisdom isn't just about creating better relationships, though it will do that. It's about becoming the woman your soul came here to be. It's about accessing levels of personal power and spiritual influence that most women never even realize are possible. The three secrets Edgar Cayce revealed aren't really secrets at all. They're reminders of ancient feminine wisdom that every woman carries within her soul. They're invitations to remember who you really are beneath all the conditioning and expectations. They're keys to unlocking levels of love, success, and spiritual fulfillment that come from operating from your true center of power. Edgar Cayce said that the future of humanity depends on both men and women understanding and embodying their highest spiritual potential. For women, this means remembering how to be both vulnerable and boundaried, both loving and self-protective, both sharing and selective. It means understanding that your greatest gift to the world, and to the men in your life, isn't your complete transparency, but your centered, powerful, authentic presence. The woman who protects her dreams, transforms her insecurities, and shares her story wisely isn't being secretive, she's being sacred. And in a world that often fails to treat women's inner lives with appropriate reverence, being sacred is a revolutionary act. This is Edgar Cayce's final invitation to you. Honor the divine feminine wisdom within you. Trust your intuitive knowing about what to share, when to share it, and with whom. Protect your power not out of fear, but out of love, love for yourself, love for your dreams, and love for the highest potential of all your relationships. Because when you do, you don't just transform your own life, you help transform the consciousness of love itself. Thank you so much for staying with me through this exploration. If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who might benefit from it. And if you'd like to go a step further in supporting this work, you can now leave a super thanks below. It's a small way to say thank you, and it truly helps keep this channel going.